Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about watercolor painting. What you're going to need is you're going to need some watercolor brushes, some water, a palette, some good watercolor paints, brighter colors will work better, some watercolor paper, and a paper towel. Okay? We're going to learn about the different techniques that you guys are going to be practicing in class over the next few days. I'm just going to take a tiny bit of paint. You have to remember that with watercolor, the most important thing is the water. That's why it's in the title of the paint. You literally need a pin-sized drop of paint. The rest will be water. The thing that I like about watercolor is that the paint does all the work for you. Okay? The paint and the water are going to make your picture move. The first one we're going to talk about is at the top of your assignment sheet. It's called dry brushing. It's exactly what it means. That's exactly what it means, is you take a dry brush, dip it in the paint, and move it on your page. Okay, this is going to create a rough look. This is a great way to put texture in your trees or in your landscaping, a great way to make grass or rocks look real. Dry brushing is going to be the last step in your watercolor painting. But when you're practicing, I just want you to practice to see how it looks on your page when your brush is wet. Okay? Now we're going to take some water and add it to the blue paint, because like I said, the most important thing is water. Middle school kids seem to forget this all the time. You have to have water to paint correctly with watercolor. It should not look like our acrylic paintings that we've done. Don't fill the whole palette up with water either. Just add a little bit of water into the paint and then add more as you're painting. Okay? The next thing we're going to talk about is called a flat wash. A flat wash simply means that you're going to keep the same brightness throughout the whole wash. Okay? A wash is just simply a way of stating that you're going to paint the paper. Okay? When you first start your watercolor painting, I want you to think about what colors you want your background to be and do a wash over the whole paper in that color. Then you'll go back and add things on top, okay? This is considered a flat wash, where the color of the paint doesn't really change from the beginning to the end. Let's try a different color, maybe some red this time. Add some water like we talked about. Don't fill up the whole container, just a little bit of water. The next one you're going to do is called a wet on wet wash. What this means is that you're going to take a clean paintbrush. You can make sure it's clean on your paper towel. Get some water on it and you're going to paint your page with just water. This is a really good technique to use when you're trying to get two colors to flow together. Okay, so I'm going to get my paper nice and wet. Not too much water or your paper will start to pill, which means that you'll see little tiny like pieces of paper in the water. Okay, then you're going to get your red watercolor and you're going to add it to the wet paint. See how it kind of moves it itself as soon as you put it on the wet paper? You can move it around yourself, but it's really a way to get your colors to start to flow, okay? Now I'm going to take some blue watercolor and put it over here. And it's slowly going to move towards the red. This is a way to get that true watercolor look. And in the middle, it will be real faint because the colors are real faint, but it should make a little bit of a purple. So that's the wet on wet. You wet your paper, then you add the wet paint. Like I said, be careful how much water you're using. Don't glob it on there. The next wash we're going to do is called a graded wash. This is when you want to try to get your paint to move from a darker color or a brighter color to a lighter color. Recently we've talked a lot about value and how to add value to your pictures, your drawings. This is how you'll add value to your watercolor. okay? This is how you're going to achieve your lights and your darks. And what I'm doing is just slowly moving the paintbrush, but not adding any more paint. Which means eventually you're going to get to a very light red. It's kind of like the value scale we did with our charcoal pencils. We went from dark to light. And you want it to look like that. I'm looking for that when you turn in your graded wash, that it moves from dark to light. The next definition is wax resist. This is when you take a crayon or an oil pastel and you put it on your page and then you put the paint over it. The paint's not going to go anywhere that the crayon is. We're not going to be using this in our drawings, but you can certainly try it on your practice sheet. Okay? The next thing we're going to talk about is layering. So say my background's going to be a reddish sunset like I have here with the graded wash. The next thing I'm going to do is go back and add some more washes on top. Maybe I want some blue water to come in. Okay, and this is actually going this way. So maybe I'll do a little bit of a wash with some blue to show that there's going to be water here. Okay, this is my sky. This is going to be my water. You could use a little bit of wax resist to make the ripples in the water, meaning add some white crayon before you paint the blue. That would be another wash. This would be considered a wash on top of the graded wash. Then you can go in with more of a dry brush technique and add some details. Maybe I want to add some teal to my water, have a little bit of a tropical look, but I don't want it to be runny. I want it to look more solid. So as you work on your pictures in watercolor, you're going to have the most water in your paint at the beginning when you're doing your washes and you're trying to get started. Then as you start with more details, you're going to have less water. A great thing to use watercolor dry brush technique for is leaves. Let me show you real quick. I'll paint a very quick tree. Your tree should be a little bit more flowing than the leaves would be. Then you would take a totally dry brush. Let me paint in this tree real quick. Not the best tree ever, but it will work. You'll want to wait for it to dry a little bit, but then you could take a dry brush, get the paint wet, get a little bit of paint on it, and start to add the texture of your leaves. You could even blot it. Then if you want to get some paint right from the tube, some darker paint, and add some more texture. Basically what I want you guys to do is take this sheet of paper, practice all of the definitions on your page, and then you're going to label flat wash, wet on wet, graded wash, dry brush. But there are no rules. You can do whatever you want as long as you include all the definitions on your assignment sheet. Then we'll move on to our final painting. Good luck!